The House Committee on Elections will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Here.
Vice Chair Busey.
Here.
Representative Isaac. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Representative Raymond.
Here.
Representative Swanson. Representative Toth. Representative Terry Wilson.
A quorum is present. As a reminder, anyone wishing to testify before the committee, please register at the kiosk located at the hallways behind the hearing rooms. If you require assistance in registering or testifying, please contact committee staff. To accommodate all who wish to testify, there will be a time limit of 2 minutes per witness during public testimony. Members, I just want to remind you what today is, and we're going to be on the floor till midnight, so you might want to be judicious in your questioning today, but it's your call. If we have to come back at midnight, I'm happy to do so.
Are you saying we have plenty of time to visit on the floor?
Members, please remember also to check out publicly available comments. These comments are left by the public on each agenda item in our hearings. And comments are open until the end of our hearing and posted upon adjournment. So, members, we're going to go and start hearing bills. This is messed up. All right, but it's 447, right? Okay, Chair lays out SB 447 and recognizes Mr. Raymond to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm laying this out for Chairman Ryan Guillen. He's having his weekly breakfast meeting with the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker, and asked if I would do this for him, so I'm glad to, and hopefully he'll put in a good word for me with the governor. But anyway, members, Senate Bill 447 is a bracketed bill that gives a specific municipality, the city of Mission in Hidalgo County, which has a population over 85,000, hosts the annual Texas Citrus Fiesta, the option to better align its local election calendar with the uniform November election date. Under current law, municipalities are allowed to hold their general elections for officers in either May or November. However, once they've set that date, changing it again can be difficult. Senate Bill 447 allows Mission to change its election date to the November uniform election date if they choose to. It's a May bill. But importantly, it locks in that change permanently. They would not be allowed to revert back to May elections later. When I said it's a May bill, it means they may do it, not that it's May, the month of May. But anyway, too many Mays this morning. Moving the election date to November could help increase voter turnout, reduce administrative costs, and align local elections with broader electoral cycles, something that benefits both voters and local government. As I mentioned, this is a permissive bill. It doesn't mandate anything. It simply gives the city of Mission the flexibility to make a one-time change that better fits its community's needs should they so choose. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to answer any questions if there are any. If not, I believe we have a witness or two.
All right, members, are there any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. We will go to public testimony. The chair recognizes Nori Garza, representing the city of Mission, and also yourself. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
I show you registered. Is it Nori?
It is.
Nori Garza.
Yes.
You are here representing the city of Mission and yourself, and you're here to testify for the bill.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, welcome.
Well, good morning, Chairman and Vice Chairman. I am honored to be here, and I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and testify before you. My name is Nori Gonzalez Garza, and I am the mayor of the city of Mission. I want to thank you, first of all, for the efforts for this session to improve the lives of Texans all across the state. So for that, I'm very grateful and thank you. I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 447 by Senator Hinojosa and respectfully request your support passing this bill. This is a local bill which will allow the city of Mission to move our elections from May to November. We had a charter amendment election last May, and this was on our charter amendment. It was actually Proposition D, and it passed by 77% of the vote. So we had an overwhelmingly majority in favor of moving our election from May to November. Too many Texans are not voting, and voters in the city of Mission are no exception. Our electorate is substantially less engaged and turnout plummets in elections that are not held in November. Our voters in Mission would be better served by moving our municipal election to coincide with federal, state, and local elections in November. The reality is that voter turnout is substantially higher in high-profile federal and state elections. We just witnessed that in this past November's election. Moving our elections would have a meaningful impact on our voters and empower them to have a greater voice in representation and accountability in our city leaders. Again, I want to respectfully urge you to support this legislation and get it to the finish line on the governor's desk. Thank you for your consideration of Senate Bill 447 and for your continued work for all of Texans. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymond?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mayor, for being here.
Thank
And
you.
I have no idea what the politics were with you and Beto Salinas, but
Oh.
I have to mention him. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
He was a very, very good friend to me,
Yes.
to a lot of us. This was a former mayor and former county commissioner in Hidalgo County. I'll never forget, he, of course, had been a Democratic county commissioner, and then when he got elected mayor, and then later became a Republican, and, you know, told me in Spanish, what am I going to do? They're winning the races, you know? So he became a Republican. And, but only Beto could, I think, look at the city attorney and say, tú siéntate y cállate, you know?
That is correct. That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
So I
Yes.
don't know if you and Beto were in the
No,
same.
we had a great relationship. Actually, he was one of my mentors. So our families go back a long way, and we had a great relationship.
Well,
so.
I love the guy. I met him when I was
Yes.
22 campaigning, and he's a great guy. So anyway, thank you
Yes.
for being here, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. Members, any other questions? Thank you so much,
right,
ma'am, for
thank
being
you.
here. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on for or against Senate Bill 447? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Raymond to close on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman, members. I hope on behalf of Chairman Gann, you'll pass this bill. And with that, I close.
Thank you, sir. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Take care of it. Yep.
All right. The chair lays out Senate Bill 2217 and recognizes Chair Shaheen to explain the bill. And let the record show that Representative Isaac is present.
Thank you, Chair Busey and members of the committee. Senate Bill 2217 will increase transparency in elections by requiring consistent data reporting across jurisdictions. We currently have situations where a data set is available in one county but not the other. SB 2217 aims to standardize at least some of the data available so that individuals know that they can get similar reports from every county. It means that when looking at data across counties, individuals can do an apples-to-apples comparison. SB 2217 focuses on improving transparency, accuracy, and accountability in Texas elections by mandating a consistent reporting reconciliation process and enhancing capabilities of electronic systems. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer questions and reserve the right to close.
Members, any questions? Thank you, sir. We reserve your right.
Thanks, sir.
The chair calls Dr. Laura Presley. We show you as Dr. Laura Presley on behalf of True Texas Elections, and you are neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you,
You
Chair.
may begin.
I'm handing out, we love 2217 from Senator Hughes. There are two very minor technical issues with the bill. If you'll look on page 2, what we have is the statute currently that's in the code with regard to processing electronic voting system results. And right now, let's say you're at an early vote location or election day location, and you finish, you close the polls, there's 3 ballots, there's more than 3 ballot discrepancy between the voters and the ballots in the machine. This statute, this is current law right now, says if there's more than 3 difference between those, then you take the ballots down to central count and you re-scan them. That's current law right now. And I've seen so many counties do this. They do well with this. But if you look at Senator Hughes's bill, if you'll go to page, let's see, go to page 5. All right, he deals with the same issue, but it's a separate section of the code, chapter 87. Then go to page 6. What he has here is if there's a discrepancy of 1%, which is not consistent with existing law. So imagine you're at a location and you're 20 ballots off. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's say you're at a polling location that has 2,000 voters. This would allow it to be 19 ballots off before someone was alerted and it was rescanned and checked. So I would just like to see, and I talked with Representative Shaheen on this, a matching up of the code with what's existing now. Senator Hughes has 1%. I would like to put that back at more than 3, which is consistent with the rest of the code. Also, there's a definition issue on page 6 of the central accumulator. That would really be good to match that up with what's in the administrative code, that definition. So I think these are minor things. I raised this to Senator Hughes when the bill was put up in the committee in the State Affairs, and I think it just slipped through the cracks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Presley. Members, any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The chair calls Kathy Hagler. We show you as Kathy Hagler. You're testifying on behalf of yourself and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You may
Mr.
begin.
Chairman. I actually was going to just say I'm going to ditto what Ed Johnson says. He hasn't said it yet. So I'm going to save you some time and let Ed talk on my behalf.
Thank you, Ms. Hagler. Members, any questions? Thank you. The chair calls Edward Johnson today. Edward Johnson on behalf of Harris County Ballot Security and yourself, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct. Great bill.
So you may
It's
begin.
important that we have these auditing systems in place, the balancing at the end of the day of voters to votes because of the secret ballot problem and the AG's opinion that we're not allowed to release who voted where and things like that. So we need some mechanism to balance that out since the public can't get to that information right now. Hopefully we get legislation done this session that could make that better, but right as current right now it is. I think we need to think about countywide voting. I know what Senator Hughes was working on here with his 1%. In countywide voting, you have some locations that have thousands of voters on election day, and making it a hard number of 3 is not a reasonable thing, because now you're taking, you could have 2,000 voters and you have 3 people that had an emergency and walked away from the poll because, their kid or something had a problem, and that would make it out of balance. And you had 3 of those in a day at a large location. Now you're having to rescan that whole location. I think it'd be some percentage would be the correct answer here, because you have different number of voters with countywide voting at polling locations. I don't know if 1% is the right answer. You can make it smaller than that, but it should be on some kind of percentage basis.
Thanks, sir. Members, any questions?
You heard
Representative
the
Wilson.
testimony, thank you, Chairman, from Dr. Presley.
Yes.
With the suggested changes. Do you have any comment?
Well, yeah, so what she was suggesting is that we stay at a 3 difference. And what I'm saying is in
Go to a
county,
percent.
yeah, instead of the 1%. In countywide voting, you have some locations that on election day vote a lot of people, and that
Right.
three
Yeah.
is not a reasonable aspect, because you do have people that have emergencies when they're in polling locations and they have to leave and they don't cast their ballot, or it's really hard for judges, especially at large busy locations like this, that know who was that left and and left the machine. They cancel the machine out but it still makes your count off because now that person signed in, but they didn't vote. And you have 3 of those in a busy location, now you're rescanning all the ballots. I think it'd be shown on some percentage basis instead of a hard, fast number.
Percentage of those that voted in that
Yeah.
area. Members, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Quick announcement, we are going to cut off in-person registration for House Bill 311 at 8:30 due to the nature of the midnight deadline today. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2217? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Chairman Shaheen to close on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman. I close.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members.
If there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending.
Chair lays out SB 2753 and recognizes Representative Isaac to explain the bill, and the chair offers a committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I do have a committee sub. The committee substitute makes these changes a pilot and also makes it permissible. The Texas Election Code has gradually evolved, incorporating adjustments for convenience, like varying ballot styles, diverse voting methods, and multiple voting periods. Initially, voting was a single-day process using paper ballots, but it has since transformed into multi-phase event, including early voting, mail-in voting, and in-person voting. While these changes prioritize convenience, they were often made without significant consideration for election security. The result has been an increasingly complex system that has inadvertently introduced vulnerabilities, shaking public confidence in the accuracy and integrity of election outcomes. To restore trust in elections, the proposed bill suggests simplifying the voting process by continuing a single, uninterrupted voting period with standardized procedures and consistent equipment, a model that has been successfully adopted in 21 other states. Senate Bill 2753 establishes a single continuous in-person voting period, combining early voting and election day voting with no gaps in between. It allows precinct consolidation, accommodating up to 10,000 voters per polling site. It ensures electronic ballots cast during early voting are automatically tallied with election day ballots as soon as polls close. The total number of voting days remains unchanged. Countywide voting remains available for counties that choose it. The same voting equipment is used from early voting through Election Day, avoiding the need for equipment swaps. Counties can consolidate precincts into locations serving up to 10,000 voters with the option to adjust the number of locations as needed. Once the location opens, it remains open through Election Day. The structure enhances voter privacy and ensures ballot secrecy, moving beyond the flawed redaction policy currently in place. The average voter may not notice these changes, but Senate Bill 2753 will significantly reduce the burden on election workers and boost confidence in the election process. I'm happy to answer any questions. Reserve the right to close.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, Mr. Raymond?
Thank you, Chairman. Representative, wouldn't this put conservative Republican candidates at a distinct disadvantage? Oh, no, it's another bill. Sorry.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much. We'll reserve your right to close, and we'll proceed to public testimony.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Stephen DeLine representing himself. Stephen DeLine, are you here? Chair recognizes Dr. Susanna Carranza representing herself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Dr. Susanna Carranza. You're representing yourself and you're here to testify against the bill?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, welcome, ma'am. You may proceed.
All right, so I don't have a problem with, removing the gap. That's actually would be a good thing to remove the gap at the end of the day. But this bill is a bill that could have been simple and just addressing parts of kind of making everything connected, and instead of moving the dates, adding those dates. But there's another part of the bill that I find it problematic that says that the voter registration offices don't have to be open while voting is happening on weekend. And to me, that alone is reason to just not go for this bill. Because I work elections, I work the polls, and you always need to be able to have access to the voter registration office because they are instrumental in answering questions of eligibility of a voter. So if there is voting on the weekends and the office is not required to be open, that is a big deal. That is just shouldn't be in this bill, should be just reason enough to table it. So please oppose this bill.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much for your testimony. Chair calls Edward Johnson with the Harris County Ballot Security, and also yourself. And let the chair recognize Ms. Swanson is present. Sorry, show you registered as Edward Johnson. You're representing Harris County Ballot Security and yourself, and you're here testifying against the bill.
That is correct.
All right, well, welcome.
Yes. So this is a good concept, but in reading the language, I don't think it's ready for prime time yet. I would really strongly suggest a interim study and try to get some of the election people that run this show involved in drafting this legislation. I actually think that it probably should be its own section because you're not going to be early voting anymore and you're not going to be voting on election day. It's an election period. And this bill really doesn't lay that out. This will actually probably end up costing counties more money because they are going to have to close out early voting. And the scanning machines at polls, when you close them out, you can't reprogram them for election day without erasing the votes that are stored internally on those machines. So there will have to be new equipment delivered to all these locations to do election day also. And currently, why you have that gap in here is you're kind of running in series. You're doing ballot by mail, and then you do early voting in the election world, and you have all your employees working on early voting, and then you stop early voting, and now you can switch your whole staff to working on election day. And you're going to have to do all these things in parallel under this bill, which will require more employees. You're not going to have early voting results at 7 o'clock anymore. Large counties, you probably won't have it because now you're doing election day and early voting at 7 o'clock on election day. So you probably won't have results for at least 2 days after this in very large counties. It's trying to make it more secure on disclosing who voted early, but you're going to be printing the tapes possibly from early voting at the locations, and the judge and alternate judge will see those results. And then this bill also, good or bad for people, encourages everybody to go to countywide voting. They're scratching the section out of there of any restrictions from applying. So
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank you,
can
sir.
apply.
Members, any questions? Ms. Swanson?
I also have had a lot of concerns about this bill in particular, but this whole concept that sounds so great, but it's kind of, to me, theoretically really good, but written by people who just have not been in the trenches and seen how everything, the nuts and bolts and how everything work. And I see a lot of nodding heads out there of experienced people. And so, you know, as the many, many years I was an election judge and would go pick up my stuff on Saturday or Sunday before, but, you know, during those 3 dead days, I did see like an entire warehouse, and it's just packed with all the employees, and they're all getting all the right stuff to everyone. And it's quite a procedure, and I don't see how you could do that and have all these people out running elections at the same time. So can you just go into, just give us more details as somebody who really does know the nuts and bolts of running an election?
Yes, so you're 100% correct. Right now, it's kind of done in series, is what I was talking about. You have staff, and actually a lot of staff are working early voting polls, and it ends, and you gather all that equipment up, and then you shift to election day. In Harris County, they have 80 early voting locations. They have 700 election day locations. So you're
Say that again?
700 election.
So they got to go, they've got 3 days right now to go from 80 to 700.
That's right.
And all these mysterious, non-existent extra employees are going to make that happen.
Yeah.
Somehow,
so under
if
this
we do
bill,
away
you
with
would be
these 3
running that
days.
in parallel. You would be doing early voting with the staff there, and you're going to have a whole new staff to go out and set up the 630 some odd locations that you need extra, which is a big challenge. And as you've seen, it's a whole warehouse full of just supplies for the judges, let alone the equipment and everything.
We're talking a big warehouse.
Yeah, the intent of this bill is very good. So
Right.
I have heard some large counties in that 3-day interim period, or 4-day, whatever you want to call it, that actually take the early voting memory sticks and they read them. And they're saying, well, I'm reading them to make sure they work correctly, and they print the report. Well, there's nothing in the code that says you can't do that as long as you don't make it available. But how do you know that they haven't called their friend and told them, you know, what those results are? So by putting these together, you're lessening that effect of being able to find out the results of early voting and tell people. But this is a huge shift in how we do elections, and it needs to be really planned out. So, because, I mean, that would be a horrible thing if it flops statewide.
Yes, there is a recognition of the change that's in this legislation. So I think the committee sub talks about a pilot. You mentioned an interim study, so a lot of those are a part of the discussion. So thank you. Members, any other questions?
Did you have anything else that we need to understand, or was that, I mean, I appreciate that.
To make this work, also to make this bill work, you need to have the whole state go to countywide voting or early voting. It needs to be an election period where you can keep using the same equipment in the location. You can't have a break between early voting and election day. It's got to be an election period.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And everybody would have to do countywide voting. on
Right.
election
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair calls, I'm sorry. I wanted to remind everybody, so we have cut off registration for House Bill 311. So again, if you have not registered for House Bill 311, we have stopped registration. We apologize, but given the volume of testimony that we had this morning, and also just if some of you aren't aware, we actually have a deadline tonight. So the members of the House are going to be on the floor until midnight tonight, and then if we don't complete all the testimony, there's an opportunity that we either reconvene, this committee reconvenes after midnight, or the meeting might get canceled. So just be aware that we're going to try to do our best to accommodate everybody, but be aware that those are. Online written testimony. And there is an opportunity, if you don't get to testify, there is opportunity for online testimony as well, which members will be able to review. So Chair calls Kathy Hagler, representing herself. Hello, ma'am. I show you registered as Kathy Hagler. You're representing yourself and you're testifying against the bill?
Yes, sir, that's correct, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This is a very complex bill. I'm giving you a handout with the different concerns numbered in green if I'm pointing out something I like, and numbered in red if I see it as a problem, because I know 2 minutes is not going to cut it for all the things I'd like to say. So number 4 is about election workers that would have access to the memory sticks that would need to be changed out on Election Day scanners. Number 5 is about security of the ballot boxes inside the scanners at the polling places. Number 6 is pointing out that we're going to lose separate reporting for early voting in person and Election Day voting, because those will now be combined into one number in the reports. Number 7, the bill has a minimum number of hours for early voting, with the earliest and latest those hours can be, but no maximum number of hours. All counties, in my opinion, should have the same number of voting hours. There's more details there. Number 8, this is just me, but we should not be voting on Sundays. So check the Big Ten and see what it says in your Bible about the Sabbath day if you have any questions, and take that up with the Lord. Number 9, why would you deliver unvoted ballots at any time except for the last day of early voting? I'm very confused by what it has in number 9. Number 10, the ballots voted during early voting are not delivered until to Central Counting Station until after the polls are closed on Election Day. So that's going to combine early voting and Election Day ballots coming in with the judges after 7:30, probably much later on election night, and that's going to cause election results to be delayed for a couple of days probably, and that's unacceptable. Number 11 is a concern that a new phrase has been added that says to be counted manually, but there's nothing in there to address automatic tabulating equipment, and to me that's a fatal flaw. For a county that has precinct voting on Election Day, number 12, you'd be combining early voting countywide ballots with Election Day precinct-only ballots. How would you know that the Election Day ballots were only from voters in that precinct? There's a lot more in there, but we don't have time for all those.
Well, we appreciate, first of all, your speed, but your written testimony. Members, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am, very
Thank you,
much
sir.
for being here.
I would
Chair
like to
I'm
ask,
sorry.
is there anything else that you just got to tell us? Because I'm really concerned that maybe in the rush here at the end of session, we might be voting on a bill that maybe is not ready for prime time yet.
Well, my biggest concern is what I've heard about the pilot program. I would be concerned that there would be some counties that would be voting while the pilot programs haven't started yet, and then these other counties, all the rest of the counties, will have stopped voting while the pilot program is still going
Okay.
on. And if any of those counties have a state rep or state senate district that's multi-county, that's going to be a big problem.
Ooh, okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Chair calls Kevin Hale with the Libertarian Party of Texas and also representing himself. Hello, sir. I show you registered as Kevin Hale. You're with the Libertarian Party of Texas, and you're also representing yourself, and you're testifying against the bill.
I am.
Welcome.
When I looked at today's agenda, I saw a bill that we were seeing way too late, and then I saw a bill that we're seeing right on time. This is the bill we're seeing right on time. I think it's a good idea for Senator Hall to get the feedback to make this idea better. This eliminates early voting, which means we need to expand mail-in. I like the 8-day versus the 15. Instead of an 8-day window, I would prefer a 15-day window, because that gives you 3 Tuesdays and 2 full weekends. And I'm sorry, if you can't manage to vote in 15 days, you probably weren't going to vote anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir, very much for being here. Welcome, Ms. Morales-Shaw. We wanted to recognize your presence. Chair calls Dr. Laura Presley with True Texas Elections. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Dr. Laura Presley, and you're representing True Texas Elections, and you're neutral on the bill.
Neutral on the bill.
All right,
yes.
welcome.
Thank you. Mostly I do support this bill, and there's a technical issue with it also about, it's very similar to what I just spoke before regarding, does it match existing law right now? So if you go to page 2, there's a section in the code 85.032. It has to do with security of early voting ballot boxes. And it says there that the procedures prescribed for the security of the ballot boxes which govern the use of sealed ballot boxes, is 127.066. So let's go to that one. This is existing law. Go to page 3. Existing law 127.066 says, after the ballot box is sealed, it shall be delivered to the central counting station by 2 election officers. And nothing in this bill changes that. Just like with the previous comment that that Ed brought up, nobody's changing what the existing law is. And if we are changing existing law, we would have a different conversation. But no one's proposing that. This bill does not propose to change from 2 election officers who are delivering it to 1, which is in what is in the bill. So let's go to page in the bill. Go to page, it's highlighted, next to last page. And it says that the ballot boxes to the main polling place that are being delivered, you go to the last page, is to be delivered by an election officer, which is 1 person. So I do not want us going backwards in ballot box security. If you want to change the original code, let's have that conversation, and we'll have a bunch of people up here saying no way. So I just think that that needs to be changed and fixed. I raised this in the Senate committee, and I think it's just slipping through the cracks. So on the first page, the 2 discrepancies are listed. So I think it's an easy fix. We just put 2 election officers, just like we have existing now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any
Members,
questions?
any questions?
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Chair calls Jennifer Doinoff, representing Texas Association of County Election Officials, and herself. Hello, Ms. Doinoff. I show you registered as Jennifer Doinoff. You're representing Texas Association of County Election Officials and yourself, and you are neutral on the bill.
That is
All
correct.
right, well,
Thank
welcome.
you and good morning. Our members have said that this idea of an election period could work and could simplify things if given the time to study and test the process prior to becoming the standard for running elections in Texas. This is a big change to our elections, and we want to make sure that we can implement this in a way that doesn't cause confusion to voters or logistical issues to our county election officials. We would like to see the Secretary of State's office oversee a study on this process to prescribe procedures to converting to an election period. The study should be done only during an odd year election, so a November constitutional amendment or May election that doesn't contain state and county officers. Ideally, this would be a statewide study including all counties because, as you've heard, every county does it differently. Additionally, there would need to be a lot of voter engagement ahead of time to ensure that confusion is kept to a minimum. I do believe this could work, and I do believe we have the opportunity to do it correctly if we work with the state and put a working group together to make sure that there are no unintended consequences that we're not even thinking about here today. We have spoken with Senator Hall's office, and we do appreciate his hard work on this, and the bill has come a long way, but I still think that we need to do some more study. And I'm available for
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Chair calls Debbie Lindstrom with Citizens Defending Freedom and also representing yourself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Debbie Lindstrom. You're representing Citizens Defending Freedom and yourself, and you're testifying for the bill.
I'm actually going to change that to neutral.
Okay,
There's
give
been
us 1 second, and we'll make that change for you. And then I'll read back everything to you to confirm. Okay, so now I'm showing you, so you're registered as Debbie Lindstrom, you're representing Citizens Defending Freedom and yourself, and you're neutral on the bill.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say that there's been a lot of really great testimony this morning and a lot of really great questions and thoughts. I do like the idea of the pilot program or the study, and I do think the elections offices should be open the entire time. And I think it really just there needs to be a little bit more consideration on this. But I think this is a great idea, and I really hope that we get through this and to an idea like this to passage and to fruition, because I think it will save the counties money in the long run, because they'll only really need to have 1 set of machines for the entire time, not 2 sets that they're having to switch out. So I really hope that we can get there. And with that, I'm going to stay neutral on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Is there any, Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against SB 2753 and its committee substitute? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Isaac to close on the bill. We're going to have a resource witness real quick. Chair calls Chuck Penny with the Secretary of State's office. Chair calls Chuck Penny with this, or I'm sorry, you are Chuck Penny, and you are with the Texas Secretary of State's office, and you're neutral on the bill.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you want to ask questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. I'm curious, what do you think about making this a study versus the pilot?
And we haven't looked at the specific language of the committee substitute with our whole team. I think making it a study gives us some opportunity to work with counties and look at potential implementation challenges and consider it in full.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions for the resource witness? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2753 and its committee substitute? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Isaac to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I want to thank everybody who came in today and gave their insights into this bill, and I do believe it will ultimately make this process easier on election workers. It does only require one set of voting machines, and so it will also save money. And there are 21 other states that are doing this. If there are no other questions, I ask for your favorable consideration, and I close.
Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much. The committee substitute was withdrawn. If there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Chair lays out SB 505 and recognizes Representative Swanson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey, and fellow committee members. Irregularities happen in every election in every county. Some are significant and others are minor. Harris County has suffered a large number of significant irregularities in its elections since 2020. Currently, there is no mechanism to require an elections office to explain an irregularity to those who are intimately involved in the election. A candidate, election worker, party chair, or proponent or opponent of a measure can send in a request to explain an irregularity, but get this, there's no requirement that the elections office respond. SB 505 is a vehicle for those who are actively involved in elections to get answers, shine the light on the problems, and get election irregularities resolved. SB 505 would allow election workers, candidates, party officers, and proponents and opponents of a measure to ask the election officials questions regarding the election. If, after 2 attempts, the requesters are unsatisfied with the answers, the requester can submit the information to the Secretary of State to request an audit. After review, the SOS can determine if there is a violation or concern or perform an audit of the issue that is the subject of the inquiry. If the SOS finds a violation, the SOS can require the county to remedy the situation and assess a penalty of $500 a day if the county does not remedy the situation. Additionally, in severe situations, the SOS may appoint a conservator to oversee elections in that county for 2 federal election cycles. SB 505 would provide a means to audit elections based on targeted issues. It would also bring transparency and confidence to the election process in Texas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm happy to answer any questions and request my right to close.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Members, any questions? Ms. Morales-Shaw?
Yes, I have a question. So, Rep. Swanson, can you clarify what would allow the SOS to take over 2 federal elections? What triggers it?
Okay.
Sorry, I was writing.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I do think our resource witnesses would be best on that, but I would assume, from everything I read in the bill, it would be things that were quite egregious, and it spells out, assuming these are not like major fraud and wrongdoing that they would find, where I would assume they would take over right away. If they're just things that need to be fixed, the bill's very specific in spelling out that they go in, they give them a certain amount of time to fix it, they give them another certain amount of time, and so it's very well thought out in that respect. And the Secretary of State's got plenty of its own work. I know it doesn't want to step in if it can just fix things by coming alongside and telling the counties what they need to fix.
Okay. So the Secretary of State would know if there's a cure period, a time to cure?
Yes, right. It's in the bill,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Mhm.
Look, I'll take a closer look.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Oh, Mr.
Thank you,
Taft?
Mr. Chairman. Representative Swanson, would that also include, in Harris County as an example, refusal to provide paper for polling sites?
Absolutely, yes. Now,
Has that ever happened, Representative Swanson?
yes, to a number of locations in
Seriously?
my district, yes.
kidding.
All over the county and mostly
Predominantly in Republican areas,
yes,
as I understand.
imagine
Isn't
that,
correct?
yes, right.
That's probably
and
just
refusal,
a terrible, just amazing.
Yes, terrible coincidence.
Yes.
But it was refusal then to bring them for most of the day.
Was
and
there
when,
also a threat to have people arrested if they stayed there asking for paper? too
Yes, yes. When a
Where is that in the code, paper code? Is there a paper code about being too emphatic about wanting paper? Is it a state jail felony? Is that what that is?
we are fixing that where there will be a big punishment for that, and that should have never happened. And many of those election judges were friends of mine. They told me they asked for more paper ahead of time. Early in the day, they asked for more paper and were told very rudely that they didn't need any more. So that's got to be fixed. So I think that in answer to both your questions, if the Secretary of State came in and found that, okay, this was one bad employee and that person's been fired or something like that, they might go, okay, show us your system for how this is not ever going to happen again, and then they would wait and see, has that been fixed? Whereas if the county refused to fix it and was not working with the SOS at all, that's the point where and I'm sure the voters in that county would want the Secretary of State to take
step in.
over. Mm-hmm.
So follow-up question, how long are county polling entities required to hold on to information? What's the retention period?
22 months the last I remember, but if you remember, have we changed that?
I don't remember.
Well, I'm sure we have a resource witness, but that's the way I remember it, 22 months.
So what's the purpose of holding on to anything if you can't have access to look at it?
A very, very logical question, and that's been a huge problem. And unfortunately, in some counties, if we don't have basically a punishment and a means to come in and force things, then they just say, you can't do anything about it. We don't care what's in the law. And we have had elections authorities actually do that, unfortunately.
So in 2018, Stacey Abrams, when she ran for governor of Georgia, she said she had the election stolen from her.
Well, I think we all remember that.
Well, here's the point. 2016, Hillary Clinton said she had the election stolen from her. And 2020, many Republicans believed that the election was stolen from us. There's ample amount of distrust in the system currently. And if we don't have the ability to go back and look at anything, how are we ever going to restore trust and confidence in our election system? There are many claims in 2020, but we were told by the courts, you have no standing, and there is no law enabling in 50 states to go back and audit the election system. which is why the courts never looked at any of this. And so your legislation, Mr. Betancourt's legislation, is critically important for reestablishing the trust in our election system. So thank you for carrying this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your work on it over the years, and we're going to get this done this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions?
Yes, Chairman, I have a couple
Ms.
that made
Morales-Shaw?
me think of some follow-up ones.
Okay.
Does Betancourt's bill have a mens rea component? Is it based on negligence, gross negligence, intentionality before the punitive part kicks in? No, okay. And it sounds like the punitive part of the bill is, which is kind of like the taking over the election for a couple of cycles to make sure things are right, is based on the Secretary of State's discretion? Based on, are you complying, are you cooperating, or are you just being totally neglectful and ignoring notices and warnings? I think that's what I
Certainly,
discerned
I mean,
from what
it
you
is
said.
spelled out to an extent in the bill, but certainly anything like that would have to have some kind of discretion.
From the Secretary of State?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And, you know, I think a lot of the bills I've heard in committee focused on Harris County are talking about going back. There was a time before Tanisha Hudspeth, who I think is doing an amazing job, and she's gotten a lot of compliments even from you. I think she's really being very cooperative with Secretary of State and just trying to make everything the way it should be, above
Right.
board and legitimate. And I think a lot of this goes back to when, around the COVID era, when we had a different elections person who immediately got terminated by the county after a lot of these discrepancies. But I have to say, even in her defense, just a little bit, that during her tenure, her brief time actually, the Secretary of State made many changes based on the Texas legislature that had to be incorporated rather quickly, and they were good things. They were like reform type changes that would help elections tighten them up. But it was a very short period of time to implement all of those changes. So I just want to point out that some of those discrepancies in that time frame, just in that time frame, I think had a lot to do with that. But of course, I think any bill that makes it tighter, stronger, and reasonable for the elections administrator to implement in a timely fashion is a good measure.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Members, any other questions? If not, we'll proceed to public testimony, and you reserve your right to close. Ms. Swanson. Chair recognizes Stephen DeLine representing himself. I don't think he was here earlier. Chair recognizes Emily French representing Common Cause Texas. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Emily French. You're representing Common Cause Texas, and you're testifying against the bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you. I believe this is an attempt to impose state control over local election administration, and we oppose it for that reason. It would let the Secretary of State effectively remove election duties from locally appointed election administrators and county clerks who were duly elected by voters. It would allow disgruntled political actors to disrupt elections for partisan purposes. This bill designates requesters who could force election officials to drop everything and respond to their demands, or else face an SOS audit and possible conservatorship. But SB 505 designates so many possible requesters. If this bill had been law in November 2022, at least 1,746 people would have been eligible requesters in Harris County. That's 1,746 possible requests that elections office would have to answer instead of running our elections, or else they would be facing a conservatorship. That's a lot of people to hang threats over our dedicated county officials. I think this bill does not contain sufficient guardrails to prevent abuse, and I am afraid it would feed distrust. It does not require good faith or an objectively reasonable basis for believing that there is a problem in the first place. It does not require that the requester be reasonable when they get that explanation from the counties and the counties have done everything they can to answer it. They don't have to say, oh, well, reasonably you've done. If I'm just like, well, I'm unsatisfied, say Hillary Clinton is unsatisfied with the results, she could just keep going, I'm unsatisfied, and force that conservatorship, or at least force the SOS to expend resources towards that end. I worry that it would feed distrust and make election officials subject to harassment from every candidate who loses. We do have a system in place for people to address election irregularities. It is a lawsuit, and if you file that lawsuit, all those records are preserved, right? They don't go away, they're not throwing them out. If there's not enough proof for a lawsuit, we don't want to cause those requests to overwhelm counties. This bill was considered last session, and we went with alternatives. I'd urge that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toth?
What happens when you bring a lawsuit?
The county, what happens when you get a lawsuit from anyone, right? The county is
What typically do the courts say?
Sir?
What typically do the courts say when you bring a lawsuit?
Preserve all the evidence.
And then what they typically say, you don't have standing, and they throw this case out.
Typically, when you don't have standing, they say you don't have standing.
No one has standing. That's the problem. No one has had standing in any of these cases because there's been no law in place to allow you to bring a lawsuit.
All the election laws allow you to bring a lawsuit.
And they always get thrown out. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a retirement account?
Yes, sir.
Does it own stock in any publicly held companies?
That's a great question.
I mean,
I'm sure it
typically,
does.
right? Yeah,
I'm sure
but
it does.
those companies are audited every year
Yes, sir.
to make sure that they follow GAAP, generally acceptable accounting principles,
Mhm.
right? Shouldn't we do the same thing to defend our liberty and our right to live in a free society, that we're a democracy? Shouldn't we have the ability to make sure our vote is held true and faithful?
Yes, sir, and I believe in the power of our Secretary of State's office to do that, and I think they're doing a good job.
But if no one has the ability to open up the records, currently, as Ms. Swanson said, what good is that?
I do believe people do have the ability.
We don't have the authority currently to do that.
It sounds like you and I disagree on that.
Let's hear what the Secretary of State has to say.
Yes, sir.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here. Chair calls Edward Johnson, representing Harris County Ballot Security, and yourself. Sure, I show you registered as Edward Johnson. You're representing Harris County Ballot Security and yourself, and you're testifying for the bill?
Correct.
All right, welcome, sir.
Well, I may need more than 2 minutes. To start with, Representative Toth and Swanson, the 127 polling locations in Republican areas that ran out of paper, they had 1 million pieces of paper down in the warehouse that they never took out. Oh, yes. Another one in that election that is a good example of this bill and being able to audit or be able to get an answer. And it has a great trail here of you ask the Secretary of State, you ask the election department, hopefully they can answer, it goes to Secretary of State, they try to get the answer. If you can't ever get the answer, then you fall under the conservatorship. In the 2022 election, there were, the Harris County received, by their reporting, 50,000 ballot by mail. They counted 60,000 ballots. Where are the extra 10? They never answered that. That's why last session we went to, for Harris County, this conservatorship over the Harris County Department and actually moved it back to an elected official that's responsible to the public. I will tell you, I think it all should be under an elected official that answers to the public. But now that it is under an elected official, we actually had about an 1,800 vote difference this last election, 2024, and Tanisha Hudspeth's staff spent time and worked it down to where it was less than 100 difference and came up with that answer. So, and which is reasonably within the percentage of errors. So this bill works. It has been done in Harris County. They had the auditing process over this problem, and the election department was able to answer the question, and everything was, there was no further action.
Members, any other questions? Yes, Representative Shaw.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're senior. Go ahead.
Did you finish? Or was there
Well, I
anything
mean,
else?
you know, I can name examples forever in
Okay,
Harris
no.
County on.
I know we're trying to get done before 10.
Yeah,
but
that's
if there
right.
was anything
So,
you just
but
didn't-
no, this, and the other one is, especially since, once again, we have this ballot secrecy problem, it makes it very difficult for the public to get these records to do these offline audits. So the only way you're going to get this information is to ask, you know, to ask the election department and have them respond. In the past, in Harris County, they just say, oh, we don't have to do this. The lawsuit problem, Representative Toth, 100% agreement with you. First of all, to have that lawsuit, the candidate has to raise money
to go file that lawsuit and hire attorneys to fight the county that is funded by your tax dollars. Then those records are sealed, but it takes a court order to unseal these records to allow the attorneys to see them. It's a process that never works. Even in this last 2022 election, where they had 22 candidates over these 10,000 missing ballots and a whole bunch of other election problems, they were all dismissed. So there is no tool in the court system.
They were dismissed?
Yes.
Representative Toth.
Okay, I do want to ask a question. I'm sorry. I was
Excuse
going to
me.
say no.
I'm
so
sorry,
I'm
hold
gonna
on
get out
one
of here,
second, hold on one second.
Yeah. just real
Representative
quick.
Shaw was next, and then I'll come
Yeah.
to you.
Good
Representative Toth.
morning, Ed.
Representative Shaw.
Good morning, Ed. It sounds like, based on what you said, that Harris County doesn't have a problem despite not having this bill right now, because we have new administration, we have elected officials running the elections, and I think they've done an amazing job. And you did say if we go back to the past, we want to be able to go back to the past and look at discrepancies and have audits and fix them. Are there other counties that also have had problems in the past that this bill would help?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can you give me a couple examples
Dallas
of those?
County is one that's had severe problems with their accounting process. There's been problems in Travis County. This last election, Bear County had problems. And by saying that this bill is not needed in Harris County, it's not this bill, but a form of this was put in place in Harris County.
Right.
Harris County is currently to the end of the bill under the Secretary of State's conservatorship to monitor and make sure that good practices are done. So last session, there was a bill just for Harris County that went to the very end of this process for them, since they were so flagrantly violating election law.
And how do you feel this bill responds to the current situation in Harris County?
I think this would be good. You know, the current county clerk is actually working very hard to make sure they're trying to be transparent. So as long as they're transparent, you could ask, like this last election, are 1,800 votes different? And they managed to come up with an answer of why that was, that satisfied both parties. So I think this is a good step to let them answer questions, resolve the problems, but if they can't, then it moves up to the Secretary of State.
Thank you for that answer. Have we given Tanisha Hudspeth the opportunity, since she's been elected, to operate outside of oversight, this direct oversight that you're referring to see the performance? It sounds like we're going from...
I think that may have ended this last year. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think she may be out from under oversight right now.
It sounds like this is making what you're referring to previously, that created the previous oversight, which was last session's bill, a more permanent and robust response to election discrepancies.
Correct. And previous testimony was talking about these thousands and thousands of people that do this. I will tell you, both parties, and I know for sure the Republican Party, tell their election judges and election workers to call. They actually have a team of lawyers in Harris County down at the county party, and they ask the election judges, election workers to call that group so that they can vet the question to see, is this something that's against the state law before it gets moved up the chain of command. I don't see that problem of just election workers and judges just calling the Secretary of State's office. They kind of follow their party's change in command, and they all have attorneys on election day. The state has a set group of attorneys on election day that vet these problems to make sure that they're legitimate before they report them on up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Representative Toth.
Thank you, Chairman. So great that Harris County's under conservatorship, but at the end of the day, if they don't have the tools, right, to straighten things out, what good is it? Great that you've got risk limiting audits, but risk limiting audits typically look backwards, or I'm sorry, look forward to see if there's an opportunity for mistakes or malfeasance, but they don't give you the ability to look backwards and truly audit what's happened, what's transpired. So great that we've got that, but at the end of the day, we're under conservatorship in Harris County. Did we ever find the 10,000 ballots?
No.
Why? Because
They-
we don't have the ability to look back.
Yeah,
And I can't believe that,
they
as the
never
prior
came up with
witness
an
talked
answer.
about, I can't believe that that just does not incense somebody to say, how is it that 10,000 more ballots were counted than we actually had?
Yes.
And how is it too, Mr. Anchia said, when did we do voter ID? Was that in 2009?
6.
Was it around-
I think.
When was it?
6 or 7.
So, but at the end of the day, Mr. Anchia said, we don't need to do voter ID. Voter ID is not where all the fraud's happening. All the fraud's happening through absentee ballots. He said that. We've got it on recording. It's on video.
I was standing right here when he said it.
Yes, he was in like that seat.
Yes,
And
was.
he said, we all know that all the fraud's occurring through absentee ballots, but no one has the ability to look at the absentee ballots,
Correct.
especially when 10,000 are missing, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Swanson.
We have heard similar stories from around the state, and certainly the reason things are working better in Harris County is that Tanisha Hudspeth does answer the questions without us having to have a law to force them. But we could have somebody not as good in the future, but this applies to the whole state where people are having problems that something is obviously wrong and they cannot get the answers. And I think of the Republican primary in Hill County back in 2016 where the numbers were totally off. Far more votes than they had voters, but it just took months, and as I recall, maybe the Texas Rangers or somebody had to come in, maybe it was just SOS, and take everything, raid the whole office, and they figured out that I'm remembering the best I can, but it was like they had counted all early votes twice, I think, and all mail ballots 3 times because they never cleared out their system. And then they just count the next ones, not clear it out, and then they do. And so they ended up with one set counted 3 times, 1, 2, and then I guess election day votes were counted once. Well, if you can't demand answers and get them right away, then by the time anybody figured it out, it was all too late.
Correct, because you have a very short window to have a contest on an election.
Right.
There before the election is canvassed. So after it's canvassed, it's pretty hard to change that. So yes, you do need these answers quickly.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The chair calls Andrew Hendrickson. We show you as Andrew Hendrickson on behalf of ACLU of Texas, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You may begin.
A lot to correct there. First of all, Harris County was never put under conservatorship or administrative oversight after the bill SB 1933 was passed last session. That bill did create a process to file complaints. None of those complaints led to anyone finding enough evidence to put the county under administrative oversight of any wrongdoing. The threat was there, but SB 1750 changed from the EA to the clerk's office for election administration. That corrected the problem. We have not found any persistent pattern of problems that would fit with this bill going forward since that happened. The fact that those precincts, by the way, ran out of paper, that theory that that was somehow partisan was completely debunked. It was 61 precincts were Republican, 1 for Trump in 2020, 58 Democrat, 1 for Biden. The list of people is far too long who can request these audits. A candidate can do. That is who has standing. If there is a legitimate problem with an election, I believe candidates are thoroughly in a position to stand up for their own rights. Again, also would echo the point that the standard that a requester who is not satisfied, simply not satisfied, being able to make 2 separate requests creates an incredible amount of work for the counties. No one is better at branding than Republicans, so I will just quote Rep. Capriglione from when we heard this bill last session when he referred to it as a bit of a sore loser bill. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Thank you, sir. The chair calls Veronica Worms. We show you as Veronica Worms on behalf of the Texas Civil Rights Project, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You may begin.
So I would like to co-sign everything that my colleague Andrew Hendrickson just said. Harris County has never been under conservatorship. It's merely the threat of it. Essentially, SB 505 threatens to hold county elections hostage at the whim of sore losers and bad faith actors. The one thing that I would add to this testimony is that while there are multiple provisions in this bill detailing the consequences for a county or election officials, there is one glaring omission. It contains no penalty whatsoever for someone who files a complaint that is found to be meritless, and that makes this omission ripe for abuse. SB 505 would give the secretary unchecked authority to take over a county's election for up to 4 years based on allegations of wrongdoing or, quote, irregularities that have never been proven in a court of law. Furthermore, SB 505 incentivizes sore losers, conspiracy theorists, and bad faith actors to make unsubstantiated complaints of election irregularities, knowing that these irregularities will never face judicial scrutiny. So simply put, this is a radical and dangerous power grab, and for the reasons listed here, I urge the committee to reject SB 505. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony. The chair calls Kathy Hagler. We show you as Kathy Hagler on behalf of yourself, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You
Mr.
may
Chairman.
begin.
Thank you. I think this is a great bill. I just have a couple of quick points. I like that on page 2, item F, there is a specific list of stakeholders who can make a request. We had a bill before where any registered voter in the state could make a request, and this does not do that. It's very specific. I like that. Did want to respond that lawsuits generally start in district court, and unfortunately, a lot of our district court judges are not very familiar with the details of the election code, and therefore we get some questionable judgments sometimes, a lot of challenges, a lot of appeals to higher courts. I really think the SOS is better qualified to identify irregularities, and they'll be able to nudge the guilty party into the corrective action without ever having to go to court. And I do agree that there should be some accountability for frivolous accusations. That's all I had.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The chair calls Debbie Lindstrom. We show you as Debbie Lindstrom on behalf of Citizens Defending Freedom and yourself, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
You may begin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Debbie Lindstrom, Citizens Defending Freedom. I support SB 505, a crucial piece of legislation that will strengthen the integrity of our elections. For too long, legitimate questions about our electoral system have gone unanswered. We've witnessed voting records that don't match from county to state level. We've uncovered evidence of duplicate voters across multiple counties, and we've observed numerous anomalies statewide that demand explanation, yet have received none. Senate Bill 505 directly addresses these concerns by establishing a comprehensive election audit division with real authority to investigate discrepancies. This bill isn't about questioning past results, it's about ensuring future confidence. When records don't match between county and state databases, someone must be empowered to find out why. When voter rolls contain duplicates or deceased voters, someone must be authorized to correct them. This bill creates that accountability. The legislation also sets clear deadlines for responding to audit findings, ensuring that identified problems can't simply be ignored. It provides the tools needed to resolve inconsistencies. Every Texan deserves to know that their vote counts exactly once, no more and no less. SB 505 provides the framework for that to happen. And as an advocate for citizens, my concern with this bill is that it gives them no voice. Only certain officials can bring these irregularities up, and I just think that they need to have a remedy, because our system should value the citizen input, and I know you guys should as well, and I know you do. So I just want to point that out. As far as someone else said that they liked that it was just a few people, I think all citizens should have a voice to say what they think what they find is an irregularity in the system. So thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate? I'm sorry, right here. We do have a
I the last person? Because I did register, I actually took pictures of it. It's not even showing against? I always take pictures of my registration.
We ready to go? Okay. The chair calls Susanna Carranza. Here's Susanna Carranza on behalf of yourself, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You may begin.
So I really wish we would be spending time discussing the good bills, like the voter registration that we're running out of time to even talk about, but I digress. I'm here because I work the polls a lot, and the language on this bill about what the complaints can be about is so vague, is so open, that pretty much, I'm going to quote here, an election officer that appears to violate this code. So it's like anybody working in the elections, including poll workers, any poll worker at any time does anything by mistake, and somebody in that list can go and file and raise hell and file complaints. And if every person, if there's malicious people, they can cripple the election system because they can keep filing protest after protest with like 10 days, 20 days to answer, while elected officials, election officials should be focusing on running elections. Irregularities in results. What is the standard for irregularities? It doesn't say after, above a certain margin. It just say irregularity. So as if it's off by one, is that an irregularity? It doesn't say that you can complain about that. So it's an extremely vague language, and the consequences to really overtake the power of local election officials over 2 full election cycles by something that can be pretty frivolous. So this bill is overreach. Please oppose it. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 505? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Representative Swanson to close.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Check.
Thank you, Vice Chair Busey and fellow members. SB 505 provides a way for concerned individuals to gain clarity in situations that seem irregular or could constitute a violation, and provides an avenue for the SOS to remedy the situation if there is a violation. This is crucial for the integrity of our elections. Thank you for your time. I close and respectfully request favorable consideration from the committee.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you, Representative. If there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending.
Chair lays out House Bill 311 and recognize Vice Chair Busey to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by thanking Chairman Shaheen. I want to thank all of our members on this committee and your staff for indulging us in this conversation. I know that this is a House bill, and I know what that means with today being the deadline. This is a conversation I've been wanting to have with all of you for a long time, and I know in our agreements and disagreements, we have had a lot of thoughtful policy conversations, and so that's what I hope this will be. I also understand that we are pressed for time. I have asked the staffer in my office, Kyle Burke, my Assistant Deputy Chief, who works on elections, to be here. He's in the back of the room. So anyone that's here that does not get to testify today, whether you're for or against it, I hope you'll pull him aside, because we know this is an ongoing conversation. I want to have this conversation, and so I hope we can get your feedback, positive and negative. With that, I'm going to, yeah, Kyle, will you wave your hand? Everybody in election knows Kyle. All right, with that said, thank you all so much for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 311. Today we have an opportunity to take a step forward, not for a political party, not for a headline, but for the people of Texas. This bill is not about Democrats or Republicans or Libertarians. It's about Texans. It's about making government work the way it's supposed to, efficiently, securely, and in service to the people who pay for it. Right now, we live in a digital world. We can renew our driver's license online. We can pay our taxes and close on a home online. But registering to vote in Texas, you still have to print a form, sign it, mail it in, or take it to the registrar's office and wait. That's not efficient, that's not modern, and it certainly isn't good government. Under current law, Texans can update their voter registration online when they update or renew their driver's license through a portal on the Secretary of State website. The system works. In fact, it has already processed over 6 million registrations in Texas, online registering in Texas, 6 million. And as DPS has testified before this committee repeatedly, it has done so without issue. But here's the catch. If you've just turned 18, just moved to Texas, or you've never registered to vote before, you don't get that same access. So while most Texans, 6 million, more than the population of many states, have taken advantage of this, there's a gap still of who doesn't get to utilize it. You're forced to use, if you're in that gap, you are forced to use an outdated, paper-based system that is prone to typos, human errors, and delays, costing our counties time, money, and resources. That's not how a modern democracy should operate. House Bill 311 is a simple, common-sense fix. It expands the existing online voter registration system of Texas to allow first-time registrants to sign up online so long as they have a Texas driver's license or state issue ID. It also directs the Secretary of State to work with DPS and the Department of Information Resources to create a pathway for Texans without a license to register online, because every eligible voter should have a clear, secure way to participate. This is not a new idea. Arizona has had online registration since 2002, and 42 states in the District of Columbia have passed similar modernization. Red states, blue states, big states, and small states alike. Even our neighbors in Oklahoma launched a full online voter registration system just last year. They did it because it's cheaper, because it's faster, and because it's more secure. Texas is long overdue to join them in the 21st century, running elections that actually work for people. So I hope we'll take off our political hats and make this a win for Texas. Here's why. This bill isn't about cutting corners. It's about true election security and government efficiency. Online registration reduces human error from handwritten paper forms. It validates voter information in real time, ensuring more accurate data and cleaner voter rolls. It cuts down on the backlog of paper applications that counties struggle to process, saving time and money and reducing government bureaucracy while increasing government efficiency. It increases accessibility for Texans who just turned 18, for people who just moved here, and those otherwise not already registered to vote. And it will save taxpayers' dollars at the county level year after year. This isn't theoretical. Testimony from our own Secretary of State's office has shown that online voter registration leads to cost savings and increased security. In previous sessions, this has been a bipartisan proposition. In 2013, when then Representative Mark Strama's online voter registration bill was passed out of this committee, it had 2 Republican joint authors, Representative Jeannie Morrison, who was at the time the chair of the Elections Committee, and Representative Patricia Harless. In an interim hearing later that year, Director of Elections Keith Ingram testified that if even half of the new registrations were done online, we would see a multiplier in cost savings, and that online voter registration would save time, have better accuracy, and be more secure. The very next session, Rep. Celia Israel's online voter registration bill once again saw Chair Morrison and Representative Harless sign on as joint authors, and they were joined in supporting it by Republican reps, many of who are still with us: Representative Ashby, Burkett, Budden, Clardy, Byron Cook, Darby, Guerin, now Senator Brian Hughes when he was in the House, Jason Isaac, Casal, Kia, Ken King, Kemple, Lozano, Otto, Price, Schubert, Sheffield, Stevenson, Ed Thompson, Van Dever, James White, and Zerwas all co-authored this legislation. And here's why. Plain and simple, it's good for the taxpayer, it's good for elections officials, and most importantly, it's good for democracy. Members, the choice before us today is simple. Do we want to keep wasting time and money on an outdated system that frustrates voters and burdens counties, that is prone to errors and makes our voter rolls less accurate, and that keeps eligible Texan citizens from participating? Or do we want to embrace a solution that respects our constituents, delivering the kind of efficient, secure, and responsive government Texans deserve? This bill is a Texas solution to a Texas problem. It's practical, it's proven, and it's the right thing to do. I'm proud to bring it forward today. I'm thankful for y'all's respect to have this conversation. I know that politics has maybe changed the narrative around this. But when we think about some of the people that have supported this that are still here in the past, when we think about 42 states having done this, I think we can work through this and figure out the efficient way to do this for the people of Texas. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. And Mr. Chairman, I request a right to close.
Thank you. Chair, members, any questions? Chair has none. We will call on, I'm sorry? Okay, but we'll call on you to close in a few minutes. Is it okay?
How did you need to do it?
Huh?
You're in charge.
I'm trying to help you out. Or what do you want?
Oh, no, I was just saying we have a digital witness today.
Okay, so we're going to call a digital witness first. And just as a reminder, we go into session at 10, so the chair's intent to adjourn a few minutes before that. So whenever you testify, you have 2 minutes, but you don't have to use the whole 2 minutes to give more people a chance to say something. This time, Chair calls Evan Preston, Security Democracy USA, and shown for the bill. Evan, can you hear me? Hold on, we can't hear you. Well, we can read lips. No, hold on. Say hi, say something. Can't hear you. Say, go Cowboys, say something. I don't want to say that. We can't hear you. We don't know what's going on. Hold on just a second. No, we can't hear you, buddy. We can see you. But just kind of keep talking so that maybe we'll hear when you come through. Yeah, just pretend you're testifying already, and it can be practice. Like, you know, just so that you're talking, because all of a sudden it'll probably come on. Yeah, still can't hear you. Huh? We're working on it. I think it's the Russians. I'm not sure.
Can we go someone else and come back?
We'll tell you what, we're going to work on the technical difficulty that we're having, and we'll put you on hold, but we're going to go to somebody else, and if somebody here, we'll give the chair. All right, so at this time, chair calls, who am I calling? Chair calls Michael Mireles. Mireles? What is it? Michael Mireles? If you state your name for the record, if you represent anyone, and you are shown for the bill, is that right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Representative Raymond.
Yes.
Committee. My name is Michael Mireles. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, and I am here in favor of the bill. I come here in my capacity as a volunteer deputy registrar, and I just wanted to say that I am here because I don't believe there's a good reason to not support this bill. As of last year, 42 states, including Washington, D.C., and the territory of Guam, have all offered online voter registration. And yet, in Texas, we consistently rank at the bottom when it comes to voter accessibility. And there's no surprise, I think, about why we have such a small percentage of people who are registered to vote in the state and such a small percentage of people who turn out to vote in this state. My biggest gripe, if I'm being honest, is when legislators cite security concerns when not giving these bills the light of day. We have those discussions all the time about election security. It's important, but I think it's also important to think about the actual number of concerns that arise with election security. Despite the poor evidence of election fraud, we continue to make it the center point of our policy decisions. And consequently, we pass bills that hurt voters and everyday Texans. I think Texas has some of the brightest minds in the country, and if 42 states and DC and the territory of Guam can do online voter reg, I think that we as a state can do that as well. It's sad because I know we're not going to pass online voter registration this session, but it's worth fighting for, and I'm incredibly grateful, Representative Busey, that you've put this forward to this committee. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. Any questions? Thank you. Do we want to check Evan again? Any luck? No? Well, let's go with the next one.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Hey, Evan, on your end, are you pressing, have you muted yourself? No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Sorry, buddy. What? Okay. We're going to keep you on hold and try to figure it out, but in the meantime, Chair calls Victoria Fajardo, La Unión del Pueblo Entero, and yourself in favor of the bill. Is that right? Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Fajardo. I am from the Rio Grande Valley, Texas. I'm here today to speak in strong support of House Bill 311, which would allow Texans to register to vote online. As a proud resident of the Valley, I want to emphasize how meaningful this legislation would be for our communities. The Valley is a vibrant, diverse region, but it's also one where many people face real barriers to civic participation. Long work hours, limited access to transportation, and under-resourced public services make it hard for people to engage in the voting process, especially when registration still requires paper forms and in-person submission. Texas is one of the last 8 states still relying solely on outdated methods to put us, and that puts us, and especially regions like the Valley, at a disadvantage. As a volunteer deputy registrar, I've seen firsthand how confusing and slow and inaccessible our current paper-based system can be. I've seen working moms who can't take off time just to track down a paper form. And as a former college student myself, I remember how unsure I was about how to update my voter registration information. HB 311 would change that. It offers a secure, simple, and modern way to register. Right from a phone or a computer, it's especially impactful for places like the Valley, where geography and access can make voting harder than it should be. This bill moves Texas forward by giving more people the tools that they need to carry out their civic duty. I ask that you vote yes on House Bill 311. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Chair has none. Thank you. Evan, we try it again. Any luck? Bring him back on. Okay, say something. Evan, say something.
So it's definitely our speakers because it should be playing some sort of voice right now. Audio and video are working on it. We can do.
Let me keep going. We'll try you again, close to the end, Evan. Chair calls Becky Bullard for the bill. Oh, hold on a second. Hello, Evan, go ahead and say something.
Yep, can you hear me now?
Okay,
Yep.
well, hold on a second. So I had just called, Chair had called for, what do I say? Becky Bullard, is Becky Bullard here? Okay, you're on deck, Evan, but Becky Bullard, if you would come up. You're for the bill? Is that right? Go ahead.
Correct, yes. Hi, I'm Becky Bullard. I'm here representing myself, and I'm for the bill. I have served many times as an election judge, and I've worked as, or volunteered as a deputy registrar, and I have seen how badly Texans want to get it right when they're voting, and they want the process to be easy, and I know that this bill would make it so much easier for folks to register and would not leave it up to folks having to interpret their handwriting. You know, I've seen it can be a problem. Also, as has been mentioned already, there are 42 other states that already have online voter registration.
I would encourage, if I could, and encourage witnesses, if you've already heard something, don't repeat it, because we're gonna end in just a few minutes, give more people a chance to come up. So
Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you will pass this bill.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Chair hears none. Thank you so much. This time, Chair calls Evan, Preston. Evan Preston with Secure Democracy USA for the bill. If that's right, go ahead, Evan. Mr. Preston.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey. I want to thank the Vice Chair for his leadership on this issue. Electronic voter registration enables both faster and closer oversight of voter registration applications. I know this is a topic that has been much debated by this committee this session, and want to thank Vice Chairman Busey for his leadership that would eliminate time-consuming and error-prone data entry work, increase security by requiring voters to confirm their identities using a valid ID number. HB 311 would move Texas forward and save local governments money as well. It's replicating the best practices from other states, including neighboring states to Texas, such as Oklahoma and Louisiana. I encourage the members of this committee to support the ideas of this proposal, even if this vehicle may not live on this session. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. Members, any questions? Vice Chair Busey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. President, for being here. Can you elaborate a little bit on how implementation has gone in other states? So people talked about this idea, they pass the bill, then it gets implemented. What has been the reaction, let's say, looking past implementation? Has it been successful? Has it been smooth? Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Implementing an electronic voter registration system as proposed in House Bill 311 would likely save money because the experience of other states in implementing these programs is a significant cost savings. In just one example from Arizona, which was the first state to implement this policy, election officials reported that an online registration cost only 4% of a paper registration's cost. So that's a 96% reduction in the cost of registration. In other states, you've seen a reduction in the error rate of the information that is intake, and that's because, as previous witnesses have mentioned, without the transcription errors that are more likely with paper applications, you're more likely to have a higher accuracy in the information that voters are providing when they go to register. I'd also add that the other systems in other states that provide for electronic voter registration are a part of the infrastructure needed to maintain more efficient voter list maintenance, and that having this system in place for all voters, expanding on the existing system that Texas has, would be one piece of building a more fulsome and fast process for evaluating the eligibility of people who are on the voter rolls.
Let me ask you one more question. This has been done in a lot of red states. It's been done in 42 states, as we've always highlighted. It's been done in a lot of red states. Can you talk about why a conservative state would have chosen to do this and what their argument for and how that implementation has taken effect? Obviously, I know I've fought for it for years because I think it will increase access and easier access and better list maintenance. Can you talk about why someone from across the aisle from me, a conservative in a conservative state, has fought for this same policy?
Sure. I think one of the most important arguments for electronic voter registration is government efficiency. That if there's a way for the government to be more efficient, to cost taxpayers fewer dollars to provide a necessary public service, then the government should adopt that reform. And from Idaho to West Virginia, we have seen very conservative states adopt this kind of electronic voter registration for that reason, that they want to deliver better service for the taxpayers for a lower cost to the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? No? The chair sees none. Thank you so much for your patience. Appreciate it. This time, chair calls Jennifer Doanoff, Elections Administrator, Texas Association of County Election Officials, and yourself for the bill. Go ahead.
That is correct. And you're absolutely right. This is not a partisan bill. It's a general consensus of our membership that this is a great bill. This would be a great move for Texas. And as you know, we have county officials that are electeds that are Republican, Democrat, and neutral EAs. So we haven't heard anybody that doesn't think this is good for all the reasons you've heard. The bill increases accuracy of the voter records. By allowing voters themselves to put the information in, the passing of this bill would ensure that voters are accountable for the information they provide on the application, because the system could be formatted in a way where they have to answer the question before they move forward, whereas now on paper they can not, and then we have to go through a whole process. Current processes would allow them to skip over vital information that we need in order to register somebody. This minimizes data entry errors due to clerks that are entering tens of thousands, literally, of these right before an election. And many counties have to have temporary staff to do this because they don't have staff to do it. Online voter registration provides real-time record of voters that are registering, which will eliminate the possibility that a voter shows up at the polls and fails to present as a registered voter. Also, if the voter enters their information online, the information lacking will be notified right away. They can fix that right away. Online voter registration would lessen the number of changes to the county's voter list during the 30-day period when they're preparing for an election. We get this a lot from election observers who don't like to see supplemental lists updating poll books and numbers changing. So this would help with that. And more than 2 million of our voters already do this through DPS. So we think this is the next step. So thank you, Representative
Thank
Busey.
you. Members, any questions? Oh, hold on a second, ma'am. Miss? Representative Isaac?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank
So
you.
will you address the concerns of someone who might think that someone might try to go on and register 5 times and fake their ID as like 5 different people? Or
So I think we have processes in place already through TEAM that identify duplicate voters with the strong match and the weak match. We get those daily. So I think there are ways to do this, some of which have been heard in this committee before through either DPS, the audit number, things like that. But I think that's a system that we can put into place securely. And I also think that people could do that under our current system.
Maybe we could ask Idaho, Oklahoma, and Louisiana how they do it.
Right?
Yeah. Any other questions, members? Ms. Swanson?
Yes, my main concern with switching to that, I mean, it obviously has a lot of advantages, would be that an online signature just simply doesn't look anything like a wet signature. So how do we ever compare that to someone who signs anything else?
So I think, again, we would need to look at how other states are doing that. But we could have processes where, and we do have processes. For instance, if you're talking about for ballot by mail, we're not talking about an online signature for that. This would be the same
But
way.
you wouldn't have that original signature to match to.
Well, right now, we don't get an original signature from DPS. We get a scanned copy.
But they signed it, right? Or did they, or is it a digital signature that you get from them?
Well, they signed it, but it's still not a wet signature that we get into our office.
It may not be a wet signature, but it was at the time. You're getting a picture of a wet signature, whereas something that somebody makes on their own computer at home is going to look nothing like their signature.
While we think we're getting an original signature, I mean, we're getting a copy of a signature. And I say that not to be facetious,
So
but
what are you saying, they would make it on a piece of paper and then upload a picture of their signature? How would you, what are you talking
Possibly.
about doing?
possibly. I think we need to look at how other states are implementing this.
Right, and that's my biggest question. I don't know if anybody can answer that.
Maybe our resource, but maybe they've studied this. But
Yeah, maybe. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, we're using people with a state ID, so they will have signed that, and so that digital signature would be on file, but not signed on a computer per se. It'd be the same way when you get your license or something like that. And I know we can meet with Secretary of State. I know we're almost out of time, but I think there is a mechanism in place because you're using an ID where they will have signed and use that signature to cross-reference.
Members, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Last witness that'll be able to testify because of where we are on time. Chair calls Kathy Hagler against the bill. You don't need to use the whole 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am against the bill and representing myself. The Signature Verification Committee and Early Voting Ballot Board are allowed to request all signatures on file for the last 6 years in order to verify that the signatures on the application for ballot by mail is the same as the signature of the person who signed the ballot carrier envelope. And unless this is someone who votes regularly by mail, it's very likely that the only signature that will be on file will be the one on the voter registration card. And that's why we have to continue to get wet signatures on voter registration applications. I really don't have any problem with renewals or updates online, but for first-time applicants first-time applicants need to give us a wet signature. And I know this might come as a surprise to apparently a lot of people in the room, but we already have online voter registration. All you do is you go to votetexas.gov, you say, I want to register to vote, there's instructions there. You fill out your own form. You put in all your own information and your ID information. Then it's very clear. It says, click continue, and it'll load your own information onto the proper form for you to print, sign, and mail. Do not mail this screen. Then you go to the next screen, and it has printing and mailing instructions. And you don't have typos when you fill out your own name and your own address. So I'm sure that VDRs will still continue to do paper when they go to events and they're registering people. There's still going to be those kind of problems. But we already have online voter registration where you complete all the information, it puts it into a form, you download it, you sign it, and you mail it in. What we need is that wet signature. That's the important part of the first-time registrants, not necessarily renewals.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we're going to have to wrap it up, so unless there are any other questions, I'm going to ask the Vice Chair to close on the bill in a minute, but right now I just want to take a second to read out the names of those who registered to testify. I want you to know we've got you here, but you're not going to be able to testify for now. Amber Mills, what's the position? Where is it? So Amber Mills for the bill, Kevin Hale for the bill, Chase Bearden for the bill, Dylan Villalone for the bill, Veronica Worms for the bill, Genesis Hernandez for the bill, Sarah Beck for the bill, Alexandra Brick for the bill, Dr. Susana Carranza for the bill, Emily French for the bill, Samantha Fernandez for the bill, Stephen D-Line for the bill, Maximiliano Prado for the bill, Cecilia Jimenez de la Fuente for the bill, Roxanne Jimenez for the bill, Cecilia Montes de la Oca for the bill, Victoria Falcon for the bill, Stephanie Gomez for the bill, Eric Metro, I think, for the bill. So they had all registered to testify, but since we're going to have to wrap it up, with that, I recognize Vice Chair Busey to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One, I want to thank all of you that showed up, and those of you in support, those of you against. We will keep working on this. I filed this every session. You heard people filed it sessions before me. This is an ongoing conversation. Ms. Hagler, please work with my office. Let's figure out a way to make this work for Texans, because we can do this in a secure way to make it efficient. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for your time. We're gonna keep this conversation going. So with that, I also want to thank Chairman Shaheen for doing this. We have a hard cap. We got to be on the floor at 10 and can't keep going. I don't want anyone to take offense by that. That's just the way the rules work. But thank you all for showing up and believing in this, and we'll keep working. And Representative Swanson just said she will keep talking to me, so we're going to talk about it. So thank you all. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I close.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Chair hears none.
Chairman, yes, I have a quick question.
Hold on a second.
For the
we do have-
witnesses that came and that took the trouble to come and that want to stay until maybe 11 o'clock tonight or whenever the floor is done.
Midnight. It will go to midnight.
Right.
We're going to be on the
So
floor till
Will
midnight.
they be invited to come back? And are we closing on the bill?
We're closing on the bill, but I don't know of the chairman's intends to come back in after 12 midnight.
Got it, okay.
And so I wanted to make sure we said their names on the record so that they would know that they were at least shown.
So we shouldn't expect to resume?
Huh?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he closed on the bill. With that, Chair withdraws House Bill, Chair will leave House Bill 311 pending. Okay. Members, that concludes today's agenda. Is there any further business for today's committee address? Chair has none. Chair moves to adjourn. Is there objection? Chair has none.